Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
They're going to toss it. They haven't got it.
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly, Miller's still start trouble. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to round number 6 of the Radical Europe Series at Daytona International Speedway Road Course. Welcome to Daytona Beach in Florida, 1801 West International Speedway Boulevard. That's where this track is located, and this track about 3.5 miles long. 5.649 kilometers long, a total of 13 corners, 4 to the right, 11 to the left if you count the oval corners too. Quickest lap time on this track, a 1:33.724 from Alex below the Cadillac DPI VR in the latest, or in last year's 24 hours of Daytona. In the DPI class, of course. The track opens on the 6th of February in 1959, quite a way back, and it opened with one man just wanting a race at Daytona Beach. And look what we've got now. This track hosts one of the, well, two of the most greatest events in America, which I would say is the Daytona 500, plus the Rolex 24 of Daytona. Of course, you have the Indy 500 too. That is not hosted at this track, in a different track. In the different parts of America too. With me in the commentary booth this evening, Kenton Sportac. Kenton, welcome to this lovely track of Daytona. It's been great, I have to say, and especially with the excitement of this track, how close it usually is with the slipstream battles that go on around this track. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic track to get to drive around. It's very fast, very tight corners, and your battles are usually fairly consistent all the way throughout. It's never really a straight up blowout, kind of thing where you're watching one guy just run away with it too often. Makes it a very entertaining track to get to watch and a lot of fun to get to talk about.
And like I said, quickest lap time around this track at 1:33. Last week, for Virginia International Raceway, you were about 3 seconds off the quickest lap time around that track. A little bit more this evening. Quickest lap time out on the track set by Jürgen Frank, who can take so many points out of that lead that Adam Isaacson has in the championship. Because Adam Isaacson, at the moment, like he said, not able to make this one. He said that last week. And we're seeing that this evening. Adam Isaacson not here, the Swede who's leading the championship. Talking about the championship, Kenton, I think it's time for us to also take a look at the championship, because that, especially the team and the drivers' championship, it is stacking up so well. So take a look at the championship, how they are at the moment. The top 10 is what matters, and once we're running closer to the end of the season, Adam Isaacson in first, of course, like I said, on 1:09.8. Then we have Tim Bertie in second, and John McHutchinson in third. It's all looking very close there at the top. Also, Dennis Kimiakopoulos is in fifth, behind Paul Clark, who's also involved in that battle still for championship. The 22 points in it, or 32 points in it, excuse me, my quick maths not right this time around. Dennis Kimiakopoulos in fifth, Jürgen Frank in sixth, who can take so many points out of that lead from Adam Isaacson. Might even go ahead of Adam Isaacson. Adam Isaacson, who's won the last 2 rounds that he did compete in. For that was one round where he was not with us. So will he be for this round 2? Alfredo Mullo, who was so quick last time round 2, in 7th, ahead of Rudolf Nagal in P8, 9th. Jason Duckworth ahead of Mike Buson in P10. Then in P11, we find ourselves with Arturas Kondelis ahead of Man of the Graph and Jürgen Frank in P13. 14th is Ivan Bremer ahead of Guy Robertson in 15th. Rafael Blanco in P16. And P17, Paul Graham. David Wollaston in P18 ahead of Stephen Plazer, in P19. And Riyad Gluskic rounding off top 20. We'll quickly scroll through the rest of the championship to show you where everyone else is. Pause it wherever you think is necessary to see where your favorite driver is. We've got a massive grid to go through, and we're not going to name them all, because else I will be sitting here until tomorrow morning to name them all 44 off and tell something about them all. And we also have a team championship to go over. So let's do that right about now. Take a look at the team championship, because it's very close in the top 3 there too, especially with the top 3 within about 28 points. And Simracing Beethoven leading the way ahead of Team Red Lion there. And it's about, well, another 30 points back, a little bit more. MK Racing in P3 ahead of Simracing in P4. They are a little way back of MK Racing, so it's only Simracing Beethoven, Team Red Lion and MK Racing. I think they're fighting for the top 3 in that championship. Islands Racing in P5 ahead of Team Red Lion in P6. Simracing Moser in P7 ahead of Tiger Team. Racing team in P8. Two Brothers Racing, the Bartholomew brothers, are down in P9 after a couple of bad rounds from them. And insert name Esport team in P10. Platinum Racing team in P11. That team solely carried by Ivan Bremer ahead of Team DRA in P12. Pocket Racing in P13 ahead of Radsport Sim Racing in P14. Team GP, Haidai, Shaiki and IGL Coaching E-Racing round off team championship there. Commander Hallberg and Essential Racing team, the last 2 teams in the championship. Like I said, a lot to go over. The drivers at the moment out for qualifying, and I think it's for once good that we don't have an open qualifying, because I did look at a open qualifying on this track in the MX5, which is also a one-make series, and it was all slipstream based, Kenton. So it's, I think, good that this is close qualifying.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the slipstream, especially coming through the oval corners, is going to be very important. If you're able to utilize that and really be able to push yourself right behind somebody, it'll help you get that extra little bit of time that you're going to need. So having to do it through pushing the wind yourself and just forcing your own time through it, it'll definitely at least put people who it'll reduce the chances of someone getting a lucky sort of starting spot just based on them being able to find that little bit of slipstream and things like that. So I think it'll make it a little bit more of a fair grid in that sense. But during the race, if you can use that slipstream, that's going to be everything for you.
Now, Radical Europe Series round 5 was as follows. Quickly going over that. Alfredo Mollo took the pole position there ahead of Adam Isaacson, who's not here this evening. Jürgen Frank, the driver, goes to pole position right now on a 41.392. He was in 3rd that time round. Adam Isaacson also won the race. Some controversy over the fact that, Jürgen Frank, the driver who is on the provisional pole position and who is 6th in the championship, was out of the race quite early on, to be frankly honest, and it was a difficult one for Jürgen Frank. A tough one to swallow, but he can bounce back this week because Adam Isaacson is not here. Jürgen Frank himself said that he might not be able to do all the races this year too. What only matters, I think, for Jürgen Frank is getting into that top 10 in order to go to the finals between the Americas and the Europe drivers. And in the end, maybe coming out on top in that one, because he has been proving to be very, very quick this whole season long. And that showed in qualifying, of course, in round 5 at the VIR. Alfredo Malo in P2 in that race, and Arturis Condelis in P3. That race, 30 minutes long, a bit of a different beast this time around, though, Kenton.
Yeah, Daytona is a very different track than VIR. It's obviously you're not dealing with the bank corners at VIR. It's a little, I'd say, technical, but fast compared to VIR. VIR has it's a little more technical than here. Daytona, obviously, that interior section of the road course can get a little technical, but it is very straightforward. There's, you've got your little S's sort of thing coming out of turn 1 into turn 2, 3. and 4 area, but you don't really have to be turning too much. It's more so getting through that horseshoe that's the more important aspect of everything when it comes to that part of the track. And then obviously the dog leg is really easy for turn 4. The west horseshoe, again, heavy braking, a good passing area, but it's not the most technical of tracks. It's a very fast track, so it's going to come down to just who's able to really maintain their speed and with entry and exit and really push their way through throughout the car.
Now let's take a lap on board on this track, down into turn 1. A late braking zone, turning and braking at the same time. Easy to lock up that front right and just go straight on this car. Gets through nicely, does Stephen Place through turn 2 and 3. Easy, flat into turn 4. First of the 2 horseshoes. This one being the Rodriguez International Horseshoe Rodriguez. Usually most people don't mention that, but it's the International Horseshoe for most people. Into turn 4, the real turn 4. A tricky one, I have to say, because it's full throttle, but you can't go through there side by side if you don't give each other the respect. A very fast right-hander into the second horseshoe, the Western Horseshoe, turn 5. Almost a 180-degree corner, and a very long one. Down to second gear you go there, through turn 6 nicely, which leads onto the banking. So far, a neat and tight lap from Stephen Place. Jürgen Frank a little further up there, improving once again on a 41.6, or on a 41.1 at the moment, improves to a 40.8. Stephen Place now into the Le Mans chicane, turn 10 and 11. Coming off the backstretch, a good exit needed here of the chicane. It's not the chicane that matters, it's the exit out of the chicane that matters, which we will see probably about 1 million times this evening, because it's this run that is going to determine if you can overtake someone down the turn 1. If you overtake before the chicane, you're going to be a sitting duck on this second straight, especially with the downforce that this car produces, the slipstream that you have in these SR8s. Across the finish line on the front stretch, what is it going to be for Stephen Place? It's going to be a 141.41 there for Stephen Place. That's a nice one. Down to the turn 1 again, neat inside 8. Last lap now for him, so this one is going to count here, Kenton.
Yeah, and this, I mean, the exit of that chicane is everything. If you almost want to compromise your entrance a little bit just so you can have a very smooth and very clean exit. And then coming through these horseshoes, it's all about making sure you're not too on the throttle, too fast, where you send yourself around, because you can definitely unsettle the car getting a little quick on that throttle. So you have to be nice and smooth going through both horseshoes there. And like you said, that dog leg at turn 4, it's flat out. It's hard to do side by side, because you have to really respect your competitor there and not sort of push your way a little wide and run the risk of bumping them and sending them off. Because if they hit grass, you're gone. You're going all the way through into basically turn 6 and skipping the horseshoe there, which is not the best way to do it. And then the ovals, those bank turns they're pretty steep. They're about 33 degrees going through there, so you need to make sure you've got a lot of speed going, because if there's any accidents up there, that's high risk of cars going all over the place.
Oh, Thomas here, he's way wide in that chicane. Well, Le Mans chicane, proving a tricky one for some drivers, especially drivers further down the road. Artur's got dailies with his last lap, improves up, it's a P2. Frank has done all his 4 laps. It's waiting on Stephen Place, seeing what Stephen Place can do. Across the line he comes now. Not too much of an improvement. Not an improvement at all for Stephen Place, I think, on that lap. A 10th slower than what he has been able to do, and that keeps him in P5. Jürgen Frank, though, 4.5 tenths ahead of the rest of the field. Dennis Kiriakopoulos, what is he going to be able to do? He has already crossed the finish line for his last lap. Dennis Kiriakopoulos not going to do anything anymore. So had men of the graph. These drivers are just going around to try to get a little bit more lap time for the race. Connor Scribner across the line. What can he do? This is his last lap, and he doesn't improve either. Seems difficult for the drivers to improve on the last lap. This car seems to be improving up until really lap number 3, and that's where it kind of plateaus. It seems like the grid has been set though for the race, and let's take a look at how the drivers will be lining up here this evening at the start of this race. Jürgen Frank has the pole position, which will give him a great opportunity to gain some more points back in the championship on Adam Isaacson. Arturus Kondelis is second out of Rudolf de Galen in third, out of Tim Bertie in P4, rounding off that second row. On the third row, we have Stephen Place out of Paul Crab. Fourth row is Mike Buson and Dennis Kiriakopoulos. Then Daniela Cascado and Ivan Bremer rounding off row number 5 and the top 10. Thomas in P11 out of Menno de Graaf in P12. Then in P13, we find ourselves with Jorge Gonzaga ahead of Rafael Blanco, rounding off the 7th row of the grid. Connor Scribner ahead of Jason Duckwood in P16. Miros in P17 of Andy Bean in P18. Dave Rolliston in P19 of Joseph Emmett in P20. And Alex Roggenbuck in P21. Rounding off this 21 strong grid we have this evening. Kenton, I'm excited to get this underway. A rolling start instead of a standing start that we usually have. And I can tell you why that is. That is because else we would be starting on the banking.
Yeah, and starting on the banking in these cars, or any car really, you're going to have a nightmare if that's the case. As soon as you start, your car's going to kick left and right down that banking, and it would cause a whole lot of problems for the start of the race that you just don't want to have to deal with right away. So definitely makes sense that they're going to be going with a rolling start in this situation.
Waiting for the boys to get underway. Arturus Kondelis will be looking to do more of the same that he did earlier on in the season in rounds number 5. Just try and stick with Jürgen Frank, I think, is a good idea for them. Especially in the front row. Make sure he doesn't get away outside of that second before the first banking, really.
Yeah, you really need to hold on to the guys, because obviously you do get that slipstream that you want to have, but the issue obviously then comes that if you get out of that slipstream, you can get dropped pretty hard, and you don't want to do that. You definitely want to keep guys as close as you can and sort of hold on to everybody as best as you can, so that you're able to really push through and fight with it.
Well, the thing is, on the bankings, I think you gain more than the 4 attempts that he lost in qualifying, which will be about the gap between those two. So it's going to be interesting, because you don't want to lose that much. We're going to go down to turn 1 with about 21 cars, so hoping to keep a clean day too. Pace car lights are off. The pace car is going to come in this time round, but we won't have one lap around the circuit. It's only this short run to the start-finish line. Pit stops needed, 2 of them at least. 1.5 hour of racing coming up here on the Daytona road course for the Radical Europe Series, round number 6, and it's going to be an exciting one. Over halfway in the season now, so yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. Pace car pulls off the road. Jürgen Frank allowed to dictate the pace. When is he going to go? He's going to go now. We are green for round number 6 at the Daytona International Speedway. Jürgen Frank leads them away. We're already single file, and it looks like the top 5 going to jump on everyone else. So that's an interesting one to look back at in a bit once the race is settled down a bit. It's about 4 Team Redline cars against the 1 Arturus Kondelis. So Simracing and Arturus Kondelis and Simracing in P2 and 3. Or P3 and 4, excuse me. However, Arturus Kondelis going further to the outside of Jürgen Frank. Now Jürgen Frank did not get the exit out of the international horse that he wanted. Pulls ahead of Arturus Kondelis again. Well, it seems like so far, Kenton, we've got cleanly through turn 1.
Yeah, Jürgen Frank definitely got a fantastic jump there, and that top 5 definitely pulled away from the next pack there very quickly. He did get a very wide exit coming out of the first horseshoe in the international horseshoe there, and it set up Kondelis to try to make a move, but unfortunately for that dogleg, manages to keep that going straight. That's good. It's not the direction you want your car going for Bihan. Yeah, Frank was able to kind of really hold on to that and really push his way back through the dog leg and get himself back up with a commanding little lead there. And he's opening a little bit of a gap, just under half a second, and starting to separate himself a little bit already.
Now, what would we have expected from Jürgen Frank? Jürgen Frank, who every round he has competed in I think he almost won every round of those. Only one round that he didn't win. So it's going to be difficult to beat the man behind that, though. Bertie, the other German, going for P2 to try and defend his teammate Simracing. Beethoven, a 1-2 for those now. Is he going to attack his teammate at the front? The answer is no, he's not. Tim Bertie sticks in P2 behind that. One of the other Simracing cars, that is Ruben Miguel, trying to get past Paul Grab. Paul Grab, though, gets back that position that he had earlier on. Down the inside now. Has a little look. Ruben Miguel can't quite make it. Was a little touch, though, between the two. It looks like on the right side pod of the radical accelerator Paul Grabs, there is a bit of damage after the contact between the two in International Horseshoe. So those two already, Kenton, getting a little bit racy.
Yeah, it was a very close situation there. It looked like he was going to really try and make that, not necessarily a dive bomb, but a very deep inside. A little questionable to have gone for it, but I understand. I mean, it's early on. You're trying to get positioning now before everything kind of settles down and you end up getting pushed back. But of course, that's going to lead to a little bit of side pod damage there. And as we've seen in multiple different races, if you get side pod damage, it's not going to help your case any for having a good day. So he's going to have to hope it's not too much and doesn't cause anything too detrimental for him for the rest of this race.
Ruben Bremer on the back of Ruben Miguel now too. Ruben Miguel is dropping back. A good exit from Ruben Bremer. Only too good of an exit. He's going to go high on the banking, I suspect. Iwan Bremer with a new livery for this evening. Usually we're used to Iwan Bremer seeing him run the green and white livery. The green, white and black. This evening it's a red, white and black, more in the colours of the Platinum Racing team. Gonna go to the outside on the banking on the front stretch. That will give him the outside for turn 1-2. He's gonna pull back into the slipstream of Ruben Miguel. Gonna duck to the inside and he's gonna break late. Gonna try and outbreak Ruben Miguel. He's just gonna slot him back behind him. Just trying to hang on to that slipstream together with the driver in front of him. And maybe catch up to Paul Crab. Maybe get 2 positions for 1.
It was an interesting move. I mean, he never really seemed 100% confident on committing himself to that move there. He just sort of looks and then get back behind him and then peek again and then get back behind him. If he's going to try and make a move on those oval sections and the banking, he really do have to commit, especially coming in, because once you get into the interior, it's really hard to make any of those passes going into the horseshoes or anything like that.
Now he is though down the inside.
As he goes right inside, is he's going to be able to come out on the lower half there. He's going to get a lot of that more slipstream coming from the cars ahead of him, which unfortunately Crab will not get. So we'll see if he can actually hold this off and make this in, because he's going to have that inside line going into the chicane, which can be good, but also not the best lane to have going into that chicane here.
Coming up the banking, we've seen the outside line is a bit faster. They're going to risk it side by side for the Le Mans chicane. It seems a bit early, Kenton, to do that. With about an hour and 25 minutes to go. But these two not giving each other an inch, even though there is more than 95% of the race still to go.
Yeah, I mean, track position is going to be very important, especially coming into the oval. If you're able to kind of hold on to that little bit of a front section and get ahead and hold on to that, as it looks like Bunsen coming into the pits. This is rather early. Must have some damage going on. I didn't see anything happen to him early on, so not sure what's going on there, but rather unfortunate, because that's going to drop him back quite far, especially at this point in the race.
I don't know exactly what is going on there. We'll stay with Mike Buisson. Maybe an early pit stop to try and get himself out of the fight, run his own lap times. Maybe he thinks, Kenton, that he on his own can run quicker than, well, with the slipstream or the help of anyone else, which seems a bit weird to me. But it'll be fine, I guess, with Mike Buisson. We've seen him done, or we've seen him doing some questionable strategies in the past, and for most of the times, to be honest, it has worked out pretty well. So I'm not going to question anything that Mike Buisson is doing, because so far, whatever he's been doing in this season, it has been working for him, and he's probably going to prove me wrong once again here this evening. Then Bertie is still in P2, now defending from Paul Grab. Paul Grab more of a run on Tim Bertie than Tim Bertie has on his teammate Julian Frank. However, you don't really want to have a run into it. What happened with Iwan Bremer earlier on, though, Kenton, is that he got too good of an exit out of that corner. and he couldn't really get the run to the rear of Rudolf Nagel, so he was kind of stuck in that weird position where if he tucked back in, he would get a little bit of a run, went to the outside, hit a brick wall in terms of the air, and then couldn't quite overtake anymore. I think that's what happened earlier on with Ivan Bremer and Rudolf Nagel. However, once again, someone else putting into the pit lane, and that was the driver he was fighting with. Rafael Blanco also into the pit lane now. Some of these drivers really preferring to pit early.
Yeah, it looks like there's also Escardo has also come into the pits here as well. So a lot of really early pits, which is a little questionable, but again, that's why I'm in the booth and not driving these cars. So they must know something I don't know, and maybe it'll work out in the long term for them. But yeah, you can see Bremner, he has to get that really good exit coming out and really suck onto that slipstream. Ideally, if he's able to kind of utilize the exit of turn 6 and really help him push ahead and get inside, because then he can at least sort of side draft just a little bit, push a little air into Candelas and sort of push him back towards him, and he can sort of try and take over there and hope, but he's a little too far back, I think. Might be just kind of settling in and sort of letting it play out as we go through.
This bull crab going to go for a move here on Simracing Beethoven's Tim Verde. Both of the teammates trying to play the team game here, I think Tim Verde. Sticking behind his cricket teammate Jürgen Frank at the front. However, the banking makes all that lost time in the infield up again. We could well be in for a great evening of racing. Ivan Bremer on the back of Arturus Kondelis, once again in that awkward situation of being in the slipstream, not being able to get the run, pulling out to the outside, back to the inside. He just can't get the run. It seems like Ivan Bremer running a bit higher wing maybe than anyone else here this evening. We're hitting the brick wall once we get back onto the banking and not able to overtake, so he's going to have to do it in the infield or through the corners. To the outside goes the Dutchman. Can't quite make it though, has to pull back into the slipstream, but Ivan Bremer here is not leaving anything to the driver ahead of him. He's trying to get past as quick as possible, maybe down the inside now. Arturus Kondelis a bit wide on the exit. Ivan Bremer's going to get him, he's going to get the run out of the international horseshoe to the outside now for turn number 4.
So fortunately, outside of turn number 4 is not where you want to be if you're trying to make a pass, but having that inside lane going into turn 5 is going to definitely be a benefit there, especially if he's able to make it stick. It looked like Candelas got a little squirrely coming out of the international horseshoe and was unable to sort of get on the power very early, but it set him up for a solid exit out of turn 6. We'll see if he's able to actually stick this, because it looks like they're going to have a nice little duel going all the way down, and obviously you're higher up on that bank, you have a little bit further to go around that corner, so unless you have a great run, it's a lot harder to get through. So we'll see how the chicane goes, because going side by side through here is never very advisable. It can always get a little interesting very quickly, as yeah, it looks like Candelas has decided to back out and allow Bremner to get himself up to that spot.
He's gave that one up very clearly, maybe thinking about the run he's going to get a little bit later on in that straight. Ivan Bremer, though, now we're going to see what he's going to be able to do. Arturus Kondelis, by backing off, has got himself into even more trouble. Could fall back as far as P70. Nagel in place all over the back of him. Nagel going to get a great little run on Arturus Kondelis to the outside for turn number 1. Is he going to be able to stick this? Arturus Kondelis is going to keep that inside line as he's done so many times now down at turn 1 with Ivan Bremer. Is it going to pay off again? Well, who's going to tell? And it seems like the inside line there, in the end, Kenton, quicker line by a mile.
Yeah, he definitely held that inside line, was able to fight off Nagel, trying to push in on him there. It looked like Nagel was trying to do a little bit of a switchback, but seemed like he got too far ahead and wasn't able to cut back underneath, and he just was sort of left out of no man's land. Going around turn 1 and trying to hold on to an outside line to get a pass is not going to be an easy thing with just the way that turn 1 acts. It's going to be a lot tougher to do that.
Now I do want to welcome in chat Phil. Phil, welcome back. Phil, I haven't talked to you in a long while. I haven't seen you in any broadcast for a long while. You've just been kind of, well, you've been going in one way and I've been going the other way a bit. and we've missed each other along the way a lot. So great to see you back on the channel. And it's not Steve alongside me. I think that's a mistake in the description of this race. It is Kenton Sportac alongside me, also one of the other great commentators that we have at JP Broadcasting. Phil, of course, thank you to you so much. You've been here throughout this whole journey, of course. Well, I think since we hit 200-300 subscribers, you've been here. So yeah, thank you for of course sticking with JP Broadcasting, and thank you to everyone else too, because you matter just as much to us here at JPB, and because we of course recently hit that 1k subscribers, well underway again, Kenton, to about 1.1k subscribers already. So yeah, growing quick, on and upwards, and up we go. Up is the only way as a racing driver, for sure. And up is what Ewan Bremer has been doing, up 6 positions from where he started this evening. As we take a look at the game here, there we go. Tim Bertie up to Paul Crab up 3, up 6 for Ewan Bremer, also up 6 is Skripner in, well, a little bit further back in the field. Gonzaga up 5-2, up 7 for Wollaston in the 12. The biggest gainer, of course, Wollaston. Biggest losers in the field, Buson and Kiriakopoulos, who have both lost 8 and 9 positions. Behind that, Cascado and Blanco. Blanco dropped all the way down because he has made a very, very early pit stop compared to anyone else. Drivers who have pitted, Kenton, Mike Buson, Daniel Cascado, Dennis Kiriakopoulos, Miro Raski, Joseph Emmett and Rafael Blanco. All 6 of those drivers have already gone into pit lane, and they've opted to take a very audacious strategy compared to anyone else.
Yeah, and it's very interesting looking at pit times lost here. Blanco had a very long pit stop. He was getting his the true stopped for almost a minute there. So everyone else is about 3 to 5 seconds. So not spending a lot of time. Looks like kind of just doing a little bit of a splash and dash, and then Blanco must have had something he had to get fixed or had to adjust something, because yeah, he was in there for quite a while compared to everybody else. So hopefully everything is solved for him and he's able to get going again.
Phil says yes, about 230 subscribers. That's great to hear, Phil. Great to hear that you've been here for such a long while. You've seen it all. You've seen the channel grow. You've seen everyone else here at JPB growing, including me. And well, very thankful, of course, for the hours that you've already spent with JPB, because it must have been a whole lot. Tim Bertie still trying to overtake Frank here. I think it's going to be difficult for Frank to try and make amends here. Frank might look to pit earlier, try and create a little bit of a gap, because he has to try something audacious, else he's just going to be stuck with Bertie and Paul Crab behind him on his rear bumper for, well, the next hour and 15 minutes, because this track it's so difficult to get rid of someone who's about 2-3 tenths slower than you, because they gain all of that time and even more back on the banking.
Yeah, it's a very interesting track because it is hard to really pull away and create a huge separation. I mean, there are a few spots you can see guys having dropped off a little bit, and that's typically just due to overall speed. But if you got guys that are fairly evenly matched, like we do with Frank, Bertie, and Crab here, it's hard to get rid of them, and it's hard to create that sort of safer space that you're not too worried about another car being right behind you. So they definitely, you got to figure out something, whether it's yeah, take that early pit, try for an undercut, or an overcut, whatever it is. There's definitely things you can try, but it'll be interesting to see what tactic they end up going with.
Well, Stephen Place going to go for a move here on Cal ahead of him. He is not. He's probably thinking about a move himself on a short Davis. However, the tricky thing is when you're pack racing like this, is when you go for one move, Kenton, you might be in risk of losing one instead of actually gaining one. And we've seen that so far by the fact that, look, at the top 8, they're all within a second of each other. The biggest gap we have in the top 8 is 7 tenths, and that's from Crab to Ewan Bremer. And even that gap is only 6 tenths, so it's so close here in the top 8. And if this is something to go off for the remainder of this race, that is telling me that we will have a cracking battle for the lead. And you can't afford to make one little mistake. You see Rolliston drop all the way down back into pit lane. What has Rolliston done? Has he smashed it into a wall somewhere?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I saw that as well, as he's just kind of...
Oh, he's just gone round for the Tiger team. And he's just gonna... Okay.
He just went to the pits, I guess, got that tow, and go from there, I guess?
I guess so. Let's have a look at the green flag. Where, of course, a bit further back in the field, if we look from our chopper cam, you can see this is where that gap gets created. A lot of drivers just taking a nap during that start. Thomas not being one of them. He was on it from the word get-go. Or from the word go. Ewan Bremer too. He's making places up from that start. He started all the way down in P10. I think by the end of lap number 1, Kenton, he was all the way up in P6. Down the inside, I think, of one of the Tiger team cars ahead of him. That is the number 78. That was the car of, I think, well, a little bit further down the field, Rafael Blanco. No, here's Rafael Blanco. Don't know exactly who that was. One of the number 79 cars. But a great start so far throughout the whole field. But the top 5 kind of got away at that start. Don't know what happened a little bit further back.
Yeah, it seemed that Bremner either just really caught the start and was really able to tell what happened and when everyone went, and everyone else seemed to kind of not realize that everyone was going. I'm almost wondering if they expected him to go a little bit later, and then when Frank did go, it kind of threw everyone for a loop, and they didn't really get the pedal down very quickly, and had a little trouble getting off the line there. But yeah, that was a very interesting way to go. Bremner having obviously a fantastic start.
Now what I would do here, and let us know in chat too what you would do. Of course, us being commentators in the booth, there might be some drivers in the chat who can give us some more insight, information on what a driver would be thinking at this point. But if I would be Tim Bertie or Jürgen Frank, I would imitate, well, Jürgen Frank can't, but I would imitate what the driver ahead of me is doing. Because you don't want to lose that slipstream. Now what that is going to do, especially when you this close, is that it is going to leave this whole pack to pit at the same time. So Bliss, Gonzaga, Nagel, Kudelis, Bremer, Crab, Bertie and Frank would all come in at the same time. I think that is something that we have to look out for too, because if I was Tim Bertie here, I would just follow my teammate in, because you don't want to run without slipstream if a pack ahead of you like this is running with slipstream.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, if I'm Frank and Bertie, I'm working together as best we can, especially on that oval section. The two of them being 1 and 2 makes it a little more advantageous for them as a team, because now Frank and Bertie can kind of go, okay, we're going to come in this lap, we can work together and just go from there, and then it's all up to the other two having to react. Crab gets a little close to the outside there of Bertie. That didn't look so pretty, but he definitely is very under threat too. Bremner is not letting him have any breathing room there, so Crab's kind of in a weird spot where he's got to figure out his offense or defense better here and try and really push that. But yeah, Bertie, if I'm Frank and Bertie, it's work together. Make sure that the two of you go in at the same time and try and come out at the same time. Obviously, don't overshoot. Bremner gets a little loose coming out of the chicane there, but it does get a good exit at least. So, but yeah, those two should be very much working together, using as much slipstream as you can. And we saw it earlier. It was a kind of blink and you miss it moment where Bertie was on the inside, Crab was trying to make a move to these outside, and Frank was on the outside, dropped down to give Bertie a little extra slipstream so he was able to stay ahead of Crab. And that's the kind of thing that these guys need to be doing the entire time and really work together and sort of figure out, okay, well, let's do this, and work from there and worry about the finish later on. You still have over an hour left of racing, so it's like you don't need to do it now. You've got lots of time to kind of work your way through it.
Now, I have a driver here on my incident report box that has gone off track. This is... I have a feeling this is hardware issues. He's crashed here. Came back on track. Got on the way again, but I have a feeling Alex Roggenbach has some kind of hardware issues. The way he's driving around, he doesn't feel comfortable in the car, I think. But that's well, Alex Roggenbach has a bit of trouble at the start of this race. Alex Roggenbach all the way down in P18, up 3% before the race started. But with a start like that, Kenton, it's a bit of a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not the easiest track either. It's a very technical middle section for being a super simplified track. Like I said, it's a lot of heavy braking into fast straightaways and then heavy braking. So if you're not comfortable on those big heavy brakes, kind of, you know, the horseshoes, the hairpin style, it can leave you a little exposed and feeling a little unsure of what move you're trying to make here. But it does look interesting. It looks like Rolston is out, not just gone to the pits. I'm not really sure, as Bremner makes a fantastic move on the outside. Let's see if he's able to stick this going into turn 1 here. Unfortunately, he might actually end up losing another spot. Oh no, he is able to talk ahead of Candelas.
Now,
that was
Kenton, what happened ahead is something we haven't seen so far. Tim Bertie had to overtake Jürgen Frank, and this is what I wanted to say a lap or two earlier, but I kind of forgot because we were caught up in our little story. But Jürgen Frank, he was under pressure, let's be honest, from Tim Bertie, but Tim Bertie didn't have to overtake him. There was no need for him to overtake him. But now that Paul Crab has got so close to the back of Tim Bertie had no other choice but to overtake Jürgen Frank, else he would be overtaken himself. So that is kind of the luxury you have if you're running at the front as two teammates here. Now, ahead of Tim Bertie, there is a back marker. I think the man in 20, Joseph Emmett, and that is, I think, the saving grace here for Tim Bertie. Or might not be into the chicane. Is going to get him very annoyingly on the apex of the exits of the Le Mans chicane. To the outside though goes Joseph Emmett, allows the whole field through. This almost seems like NASCAR, where the pack has so much more speed than the driver that is on his own. However, Emmett, I think, pretty much braking to let everyone pass there, just not wanting to get into the way of anyone whatsoever. Tim Bertie then is going to be overtaken by his teammate. No, Frank is now going to save a bit of fuel. It's also fuel saving that you can do massively once you're coming into the pit lane. You want Bremner having to defend from Diddy a little bit further back. An absolutely great scrap going on here for P1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we have seen this ever since the start of this race, Kenton. This has been an absolute cracking battle at the front of this race. And let's be honest, if there's one place where you usually want to see a battle like this, it's at the front.
Yeah, it definitely makes the race a lot more interesting when it's the front packs that are dueling instead of, you know, just the middle or the back there. But Bremner, I mean, he's trying to make moves, but he seems to always kind of hit a wall coming through the oval section here in the bank corners. I'm not sure if he's running a higher downforce or what's sort of going on, but yeah, it seems like he almost hits like a brick wall coming out of those corners. So very interesting there, but he is able to kind of hold on to his place. He looks like he lost a little bit to Crab ahead of him. Nothing too bad, obviously still within about a half a second there. But if I'm Frank and Bertie, this is exactly what you want to be doing. Bertie, you know, sat behind Frank for a good chunk of time, was able to utilize the draft, save some of that fuel. You swap them, allow Frank now save some fuel. You guys can push a little bit longer together. Utilizing that teammate aspect, that can really help you guys get, you know, that extra 2-3 laps out of a fuel stint. While it might not change the fact that you still have to have 2 stops, we can come out with a little less fuel each time, or especially near the end when you're wanting to really be able to push. So definitely gets a little more interesting when you have your teammate right in front of you.
Now this goes back to the old NASCAR saying, when you're close enough to the car in front, you kind of create a bubble and push the car in front forwards too. That is what Jürgen Frank was doing there, was within about a tenth, which is what you need to be in these cars. You need to be about a centimeter or 20 away from the car ahead of you, else it's not going to work, since these cars are made in a way that you don't... It's not made for pack racing as it is in NASCAR. It's not made for bum drafting or anything like that. So you have to be that close, a little bit further back in the field. Bremer on the outside, and Dane is going for a move up the inside. Now this might split. this back up if they're not careful. Dailies and Bremer might be fighting a bit too much here. They don't want to get split up for the pack ahead. Crab, Frank and Bertie using this fight behind to their advantage to try and create that little bit of a gap that they need once. Well, the gap is outside of 1.6 seconds. It's going to be difficult for Dailies and Bremer to kind of get back into it. The gap is about 8/10, so still within that margin. But Jürgen Frank once again trying to push Bertie forwards. And I have a feeling that Bertie is pushing the absolute wheels off that car.
Yeah, I mean, these two are working very well together, and kind of like you mentioned, yeah, that the push draft a little bit without the bump draft aspect. And yeah, it's the air pressure you build up between the two cars as you get closer is what kind of helps push the car ahead of you along. It's, as you had mentioned, very prominent in NASCAR and oval racing as a whole. Obviously, a little harder to do in these kind of cars because you don't have as much of a wind blocking. They're a little more aerodynamic, a little more downforce based cars than your big, V8 stock car that you normally see running around Daytona. So you do have to definitely be very close for it to be effective. But obviously, with this style of track and between the interior section and the actual bank section, it's hard to really still open up a big draft or big gap and get away from anybody just because of the actual layout of this track.
Now, just want to point you back to qualifying. Bertie, not in the top 3. He started from P4. Jürgen Frank P1. Jurston Dailies, who's down on P4 now. He started second. And Rudolf Nagel, who's dropped off massively, is now in P7. Behind him, Bremer, a gap is starting to form 1.1 seconds from Bremer to Gaga. And if they're not careful, this gap might go to that 1.6 margin, like I said, and you're not going to get anything anymore. Which already seems to be happening. It's so crucial for Gonzaga to stay in that slipstream, else it's going to be a sitting duck, and he's going to get Nagel and Place both knocking on his door. Talking about knocking on his door, Nagel very much gets a knock on his door from Stephen Place here.
Yeah, I was going to say, Place is right up in that rear diffuser of Nagel there and really trying to push him forward so he can try and chase down Gonzaga without really forcing himself to lose any time. So they're trying, but yeah, once you kind of start losing that slipstream and things like that, and you can see Crab actually just lost a spot to Karabelas up ahead there, and Karabelas has gotten himself back up into P3, and it looks like Bremer is also trying to make another move here. Crab looking like he's sort of lost a little bit of pace, as there's actually almost a full second gap opened up between Bertie and Frank there, and then P3.
Frank at the moment doing everything he needs to do together with his teammate from Dailies. The fight that those two have had has now allowed the top two, the both Simracing Beethoven teammates, to get away a little bit. However, I think with Dailies now on P3, that gap might start to close up again. Bremer has dropped a little bit of pace from what we've seen earlier on. The gap up to a second now at the front, so Dailies is going to need this gap to come down. However, in front of him, Frank not giving Bertie an inch, and after that, Frank might go for a move on the exit of the Le Mans chicane now. He has every right to go for that move, and I think with Jürgen Frank being quicker, it might actually be better for Bertie to let Frank ahead of Tim Bertie at the moment.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I think what they're trying to do is just help Frank save a little bit of fuel here, so that they're both able to pit a little bit later, as Bremer has actually gotten himself past Crowd behind in P4, and he's going to start trying to chase down Karabelas. And Gonzaga's actually moved up past Nagel as well. So getting a few moves going on back there, which is always good. A lot of fun up there, but yeah, if I'm Frank and Bertie, it's at this point, it's try and save fuel as best you can between the two of you. If you start realizing you're getting a little lower, especially when you're in front, I mean, Frank led from the get-go, so he would have been burning a lot more fuel than Birdie would have been, and now Birdie being in front, he's going to be burning more fuel than Frank. So working together to try and keep that fuel fairly even so they can go in and come back out together and reduce the risk of them, losing that slipstream aspect going through the ovals.
Like it's hurting too much gap out of a second, 1.1 seconds at the moment. Now we've seen the gap behind them between Gal and Gonzaga. That gap has come down to about 8/10 again. The gap's starting to widen a bit compared to what we've seen so far. Grab all over the back of even Bremer though. Grab is going to go to the inside. No, he's not. Now I have to apologise to Ivan Bremer a bit because even now I'm saying Ivan Bremer. While I perfectly know the Dutch pronunciation of that name, and it's Ivan Bremer. But yeah, I've just been saying Bremer all the time. I think it's it sounds a bit more general instead of just saying it the Dutch way. But from now on, I will be calling Ivan Bremer instead of Ivan Bremer, because that's how Ivan Bremer likes it to be called, especially with the Dutch pronunciation of a beautiful name, I have to say. A name that you don't see a lot in the Netherlands, Ivan Bremer. Around the outside now, though, goes Paul Crab, or Gonzaga on Paul Crab. And up front, the gap about 1.3 seconds to the top two here. Kenton creating a little bit of a gap for themselves.
Yeah, that was a very interesting move by Gonzaga. He almost made it stick as he tries to go up on the inside here of Crab. Crab's going to really have to defend this coming into the little dog leg here of turn 4. He does go outside, gives him a little bit of space, but it is tough. He kind of, a little edge out there, get the elbows out, and it's racing. You don't have to give him complete space. So he made sure to keep his spot and get back underway, but that's going to slow him down as he's already now about a second back of Bremer. And I'm sorry, I'm Canadian and don't know how to pronounce that the proper way, apparently. So just go. For me, I'll just say Bremer. If he doesn't like it, I can try and adjust it. It's probably not going to sound nearly as good, though.
Well, for you, he wouldn't really matter, I think, or you wouldn't really care about it, since you don't know, or you don't know, you don't have the feel on how to pronounce a Dutch name. Since I'm Dutch, I know how to pronounce Dutch names.
That's fair.
So do I know that it's not Menno de Graaf, but it's Menno de Graaf. But since you guys are calling him Menno de Graaf, and usually they're quite chilled with that, because they know that a Dutch name, it is very difficult to get the right pronunciation on a Dutch name. It's very difficult to pronounce it that way. As Ivan Bremer now goes past Arturis Cordelis on the outside. A difficult move to make stick. Is Ivan going to stick it up the outside? Going to make that pass on the outside. That has been proven not to be the quicker line today. He's going to try and get the exit to get him into the international horseshoe. Bremer up the inside now of Cordelis. No, doesn't have a look. Thinks the better of it, but this fighting is now allowed Cordelis and Bremer to fall back a bit, and Bertie and Frank to get away from the pack behind, and it's now Simracing Beethoven for themselves, and the pack behind them trying to fight to get back into that slipstream battle of the top two.
Yeah, it's Bremer. I mean, he's doing everything he can, but yeah, Candelas, he's really figured out that inside line and how to hold it going into turn 1 and making it a lot tougher for guys trying to make their move on the outside of him. It just makes it so much more difficult if he's able to hold that line and not have to worry about a switchback, because he never leaves that inside line. So definitely something he's going to have to work on, as it looks like Gonzaga came into the pits there. So he has dropped back a little bit as well, allowing Crab a little bit more breathing room, as now he has Miguel behind him, but about 1.5 seconds back. So he's got a little more breathing room back there and can really focus now on trying to chase down Bremer in front of him.
Now Menno de Graaf is on the back of Scribner. Scribner having a good first race. Up 7 positions from where he started. Biggest gainer in the field so far. Up ahead though of him, Ivan Bremer. He was up 6 positions, was up 5 before he overtook Paul Crab, and was up 7 before he got overtaken by Arturis Cordelis and was on the podium. However, he is still close to that podium battle. The gap for him about 0.3 of a second. So is the gap from Menno de Graaf to Scribner. Paul Crab P5, all over the back of Iwan Bremer. Now, the thing with this is, Iwan Bremer is kind of in an awkward position. He doesn't really want to overtake Dailies because he doesn't want to lose all that fuel consumption to Dailies because he's going to get in the pits eventually. But he also doesn't want to get overtaken by Paul Crab. Now, if Paul Crab can try and go for a move and force E1 to have to overtake Dailies, I think that would be in the interest of Paul Crab. Try and pressure E1 Bremer into maybe a mistake, maybe into an overtake that wasn't really needed. And maybe try and get past that way and get rid of the slipstream battle at the same time too.
Yeah, I mean, if he's able to really put Bremer under a lot of pressure, it's going to obviously, like you said, force him into making a decision of, do I go past him? Unfortunately, right now for him, it's not going to be the worst time to have to make a pass, as there are a few lap cars that they're going to have coming up that he might be able to utilize to sort of push his way and maintain some slipstream going through the oval area here. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit more interesting. It looks like he's kind of having a hard time staying nice and close going through that oval area, and I'm not sure why that is. It does look like Karabelas got a little bit held up as Bremer was able to get right up on his rear diffuser, but Crab, however, not as much able to coming into turn 1 there.
Bremer all over the back of Arturus Karabelas now. To the inside, has a little bit of a look. Karabelas leaves in the room. What a gentleman. He was nowhere near alongside to be able to be left the space. And he was, well, James and I had a chat about this yesterday. We'll go into that in a bit, but Iwan Bremer's got past Paul Crab around the outside of Karabelas too, and just like that, by allowing Iwan the room, which he did not deserve in my eyes. Very gentlemanlike though from Karabelas. Don't get me wrong, it's always good to leave in the driver's space, but you can see what that does. He loses momentum and loses his third place with that and drops all the way down to P5.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely left the space, but he almost left way too much space and compromised his own exit coming out of the first horseshoe there and the international horseshoe. And because of that, it just allowed Crab to be able to fly on through and take over and kind of drop him back that extra space. But as it looks like Frank has overtaken Birdie again here and
almost right on cue. We switched to him and I was like, well, this battle is not going anyway. But exactly at that time, he actually overtook him. Just to be frankly honest, quite lucky, because I didn't expect anything to happen really between these two. The biggest gap we've seen so far for the lead, 6.77 thousandths of a second, so 677 thousandths of a second. There's a little bit over 6.5 tenths of a second. Biggest gap we've seen so far for the lead, Kenton, which, to be honest, is very unique. 50 minutes, with 50 minutes to go and about 40 minutes into this race, almost halfway there. Now, what I wanted to get into is the fact that James and I had a chat about this yesterday during the Platinum Endurance Championship 8 Hours of Silverstone. Because when are you officially alongside enough to be, well, for the driver ahead to respect you and give you the room that you need? Now, I yesterday said, James's argument was, do we need just one governing body to just come together and make one rule on what is alongside enough for you to be able to get the route that you need to race the other guy ahead of you? And I said no, because every series has its own benefits of it and its own perks of being able to race side by side for this bit or that bit, and for every series it's different, so for every series you need a different approach. But what I said, it would give us a clearer view on what is actually being alongside, also for the spectators and for everyone in the racing world. But I think how we have it now, every series doing it on their own, is the best way of doing it. Now, my argument was, if your front wheel is completely alongside, so the center of your front wheel is alongside the center of the back wheel of the car ahead of you, so perfectly lined up, that is when the driver ahead of you needs to give you space. Any centimeter less than that, you are not allowed any space, and you have to kind of feel that as a driver too. Do I send it, and does he have to allow me space, or do I not? What's your opinion on that?
I can actually agree with that. Yeah, like if you can get your front tire alongside their back tire, I think at that point you should be afforded space, depending on the vehicles. If it's open wheel, I think it should have to be further along, just strictly because the brakes are a lot stronger, especially when you're looking at like things like Formula 1, Formula 2. The brakes are so good in those cars. You can late brake very late and still make a corner. I think you should have to be further along in that kind of style. But in like cars like these, the Radicals or even in like GTs and things like that, if your front tire is alongside their back tire, I think you should be entitled to space. That being said, there should be almost a limit on to when. Like obviously if like as you're about to like hit the apex, the guy just shoves his nose in there and was nowhere near you and goes, well, my tire was beside you, just had to give me space at that point. It's like, no. At that point, that's on you. And you know, that way at least preventing dive bombing and things like that. But I can see for most series at least, it being the front tire in line with the rear tires. And Daly's is really trying to put a move here on Bremer. I'm very curious because in Daly's we've seen repeatedly hold that inside line and really be able to maintain that spacing so that he's able to
Bremer
get...
leaves it open. Bremer leaves it open, that inside line. Daly's did not go for it, Kenton, which I'm a bit surprised about. Because of the fact that he just said, that inside line, he's been so strong on that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. He didn't really seem to put any effort into going for it. He just kind of was like, oh, and now it's, you know, costing a little bit of time. Obviously not a lot. He's still within half a second, but he was, you know, in 7/100ths of a second back instead, and now he's, you know, 5/10ths of a second back. So I would have maybe taken a little more of a look. It looked like he just kind of admitted defeat on it and didn't even bother to really push it. But that's what he's going to do, I guess. Then, yeah.
And at the end of the day, they're all working towards their pit stop strategy, I think. And if the speed that Bremer is running can help to do that, and they can overtake him at the end, then Daly's is absolutely going to do so. Because it seems like to be the infield. Bremer is just a bit quicker. But then on the banking, as with so many occasions so far this race, he's able to catch up and gain back even more time. It's been ridiculous, and that's why I sometimes don't like this track, because he's 5/10ths quicker than the guy behind you, but he's just able to keep up because there's so much slipstream effect on the banking. Difficult one. Yes, it's great for racing, but also it doesn't really show, or it doesn't really reward you for your pace.
Yeah, because you just run so much of a risk of losing all that time so quickly just because of the banked slipstreams and things like that. So, I mean, the fact that Frank and Birdie have gotten themselves almost a 4-second gap between them and P3 is quite impressive. Bremer almost gave up a spot there as Candelas was almost able to get on his inside coming out of that exit. As Bremer went a little bit too wide here, as it looks like Candelas is basically just going to be content trying to force a mistake out of this, opposed to trying to really push to make a pass. And, kind of a hopeful, like, make it easier for him trying to get through.
Arturis Candelas before. He's been there or thereabouts, and it's a bit sad to see the top two break away a bit, but except from that, it's been an incredible race so far, and the top 8, 7 have been fighting over those positions back and forth really, and Candelas has always been to the front of those battles, so it's only right that Candelas and Bremer are where they are right now. Bremer fought his way back up to here. Arturis Candelas qualified his way up here and didn't have to lose much work. Now, that doesn't take anything away from Candelas, because being able to qualify shows that you've actually got some decent pace. 4.4 seconds is the gap to the top 2 now, and you see how much of a gap they've now been able to create with them two together. And the gap between the top two itself still, down below half a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing kind of watching them work together and them knowing how to work together to make as much of a gap as they can and take advantage of cars dueling behind them by not having to duel with each other and just kind of slotting into a position, work together to get yourselves into a point where later on in the race, if you want to have a duke it out race and really go for the win from either of you guys, that's easier to do when you're both near the front, both coming in for the finish. So the fact that they're able to kind of create such a gap behind them obviously is a huge advantage on the fact that now they get to dictate a lot more of what they want to do and still work together after they've come in for a pit stop.
Now, a little bit further in the back in the field, with some of the drivers already having made their pit stop, Mike Buisson being the quickest of them at the moment. He's up in P10. Like I said, Mike Buisson might go for an ordinary strategy here, but as with so many strategies that he's done so far this season, usually it kind of proves to work a bit. And this time I think he decided to he didn't want to be in the wars, he didn't want to be in the fights, he didn't want to lose any time because of it. He just wanted to run his own laps, and so far he's been able to do that. The gap ahead of him, 4.2 seconds, the gap behind him, Drucker, 1.6 seconds. So he's in a little bit of no man's land right now, and has been since the start of this race really. That has played into his own hands, and that was exactly what he wanted for that strategy.
Yeah, and I mean, you do run that risk, obviously, losing a little bit of time to the people ahead of you if you're not utilizing a slipstream going through those bank corners. But at the same time, being able to run in clean air, well, it saves you a lot of headache of having to deal with someone trying to pass you constantly, or having someone putting a lot of pressure on you, and you can kind of just run your own race. And with how long these races are, as it looks like Bunsen is actually coming back into the pits now, but with how long this race is, like, your first stint really isn't going to be the most dictating of where you're going to end up, because there's so much that can happen in that, the next 40 minutes of that race. So still lots of time to go, obviously. We still have 41 minutes, so it's not the end of the world to have made that sort of choice. You've got lots of time to kind of recover from that.
Frank, still in the lead of this race, has been dominating together with his teammate Tim Bertie. There's going to be a Simracing Beethoven 1-2, a German 1-2, and again, Newton Frank is going to win the race that he is competing in. So a lot of things that are repeating itself, especially the fact that two Germans are at the front. Last time round, I think, in the America ones, we had two Americans at the front. Now, it's a little bit easier there, because that field is stacked with Americans, but it doesn't take anything away from the fact that it is pretty rare, even there, because we've got enough Canadians there who are really, really quick, Stephen Place being one of them, who's competing in both this series and the Americas. So far, I mean, this season we've had a lot of drama, we've had a lot of excitement. This race really adding to that, especially with the fact that the top 7, 8 was super close at the start of this race, and still is to this moment in the race, about 50 minutes into this race, 40 minutes still to go. We're super excited to see what the rest of the season and the rest of this race has to bring. Of course, for the people who want to know, next time out we go to Spa-Francorchamps with the GP pit lane. So that means that we won't have that complete endurance pit lane to contend with, which that pit lane in itself is about a minute long. If you would get a drive-through there or a penalty there, it would really hurt you. But we don't want to skip over the fact that we do have this race to contend with. And Stephen Place is at the moment in P7, 8 tenths back on William Negal at the front. The gap, as close as it has ever been, has not been bigger than about 8 tenths of a second so far between William Frank and Tim Bertie. Ivan Bremer, a 4.2 second gap to Tim Bertie. That's almost from Dailies. Here's the battle between those two. Look how quick they are compared to everyone that they are lapping. Paul Grab has gone into the pit lane, the first of the top 7 now to pit. Let's see where he comes out. Well, in comparison to a little bit further down the road, Mike Buisson made another pit stop. Mike Buisson has already made 2 pit stops. That's why he's been lapped too. Now, this might be a little bit of a weird one for Mike Buisson, because he's now being lapped by all the other cars. He has to let all the other cars through. Stephen Bliss's teammate has even lapped him. So it's a little bit of trouble for Team Redline as Mike Buisson.
Yeah, like I said, taking that clean air aspect of things, it definitely can work out. Unfortunately for Buisson, it doesn't look like it has, because it's kind of saw him drop back without that slipstream sort of help coming from other cars around him, and he's kind of had to fight his way through, whereas everybody else ahead of him has really been able to utilize that slipstream and be able to push their way through, and kind of keep that high speed going all the way through and not really worry about it. So we'll see what he's able to do. Obviously, a lot of the people ahead of him still do need to come in for a pit stop, but guys like Crab have already now done their first pit stop and is still 4 positions ahead of him and on the same lap. So it'll be interesting. We'll see how it all ends up playing out. If he's able to have gotten 2 pit stops in and only have lost 1 lap, and everyone still has to do their pit stop, it might work out for him in the long run.
Rudner ahead of him has only made 1 pit stop. Well, he still is, however, about half a lap behind them, but that will be, or he will be losing going into the pit. So he's round about P8, P9, I would say, at the moment, Mike Buisson, even though not being there, he's at the moment at P13. But with the strategy that he's running, once everyone has cycled through with their pit stop, at the moment I would say he's around P8, P9, which is where he was before he pitted for his second time, and everyone ahead of him still had to pit for their first time. So that just tells you how quick that top 8, top 7 has been in this race. They've been absolutely at it in this race. So even with the 2 pit stops made, he's not ahead of anyone else. He hasn't made big jumps in the field, but it has gained him definitely some valuable time.
Yeah, and I mean, he seems to be playing kind of that long run game where it might lose you some now, but we'll see how it is at the end. If he's gotten into his first pit stop now, the rest of the field hasn't pit yet, he's now not having to worry about pitting for a good chunk of time at this point, and should be able to push a little bit further. He'll come in again and be able to burn off a lot more of that fuel going into those final couple laps there. So it'll be interesting. We'll see how it all ends up playing out for him, but it's a very interesting strategy and something a little different. And sometimes that little different strategy can change the entire outlook of that race.
Is still all over the back of Bremer here. And this is about the same battle we've seen so far. However, Arturus Condelis not looking in his mirrors, might be overtaken by Rudolf Nagel. Now I expect that if Rudolf Nagel doesn't pull this up, he's been so good holding his inside line, and I thought for a second that Nagel was going to pull up the unthinkable on Arturus Condelis, but he did not. Arturus Condelis once again fending off that outside move at turn 1, a move that has been done multiple times already, but on Arturus Condelis it seems to be absolutely impossible at the moment.
Yeah, he seems to just have that inside lane on lockdown completely. Like, there's just nothing you can really do about it.
That corner, do not overtake Arturus Condelis is what we're basically saying, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you're in trouble. Like, he's got it so well done, and I don't know how he's done it, but he has it completely under control that you can't go anywhere. It's you have to try and make it stick on the outside, and that's going to be really hard to do going into turn 1 there.
And he doesn't run deep either. He just makes the corner perfectly fine, and he also seems, well, what he's been doing so far is braking a little tad earlier than the guy on the outside, which he can do because he has that inside line. He has the shorter line to run to that corner. So genuinely, you would brake a little bit earlier too, because at the outside you have a longer run, so the corner apex is a little bit later on to the corner 2 for you. Now, Dailies, He's just got that inside line locked. There is no one. I have a feeling you have to either go for the inside on Karabelas on turn 1, which he is not going to give you, or you're just not going to get past the Lithuanian. So he's absolutely got that locked down, that number 10 SR8. Bremer though has to watch out, because I have a feeling that Karabelas has been holding back this whole time, like Bert and Frank have been doing at the front. And once these pit stops have played out, I think we might see a genuine fight for this P3, P4 and P5 between Miguel, Karabelas and Bremer. And we also might see a fight for P1 and P2.
Yeah, it's this little duel I think is going to be one of the more intriguing ones as we go through, and we'll kind of see how it all ends up playing out, as they've got a lot they have to kind of fight their way through. So it's I don't think, unfortunately, that they're very in a great spot to try and take over P2, but crazier things happen. It is racing. You still have to get to that the last 30 minutes, and anything can really happen in that time frame. So we'll see sort of how it plays out, and hope that gets a little spicy. But yeah, Karabelas is, I think he's kind of sitting back and just utilizing as much of the slipstream as he can, and then once he comes into pit for the first time and gets back out there, it's going to be kind of a more of a push mode for him. Obviously, with 30 minutes to go, there's still lots of time left.
Karabelas is going to be looking to try and make his first pit stop. I expect the first pitties, especially in this front group, all the way down to Jason Duckworth, to come in the next 10 minutes at least. Else, they're going to be in trouble. I don't think they're going to be able to run an hour and 10 minutes in these cars. It would surprise me if you were able to do that. There we go, Karabelas, a special move down the inside of Iwan Bremer. Iwan Bremer to the inside now for turn 3. Beautifully defended by Iwan Bremer, and Karabelas now dropping back into the clutches of Miguel. That's what I said earlier on. If you try and go for a move and you don't pull off that move, you're in risk of losing a position to the driver behind you. And that is why I think earlier on in the pack racing that we had, we did not see a lot of drivers go for a ridiculous move like Arturas Karabelas just did there, because Iwan Bremer left it open and Arturas Karabelas just went for it.
Yeah, I mean, it almost cost him as Miguel went to push, sort of thing, and it's the downside to him taking that really hard inside lane coming out of turn 1 is that it really allows Bremer to hold that outside lane going into turn, and which then turns into an inside lane for turn 2. And turn 2, in reality, that's one of your better braking points and passing zones compared to turn 1. So the fact that he is holding that inside lane is really good, as it is able to kind of keep him out of pressure going into turn 1, but it kind of leaves him a little more exposed going into turn 2, as he has to then hope he can get both all the way inside and that the other car doesn't hold any form of a run going into turn 2, because then he's just going to get pushed all the way back, or he has to try and pull off a switchback. And not necessarily the worst problem to have, but it's not also the easiest thing to try and really make a pass stick at that point.
Take a look at Miro Arasaki here into the Le Mans chicane. On the exit, is he going to lose it into the wall? Boink! Yeah, that is, yeah. Well, what do we say to that? We say to that, it's so easy to do, and it's something that we have seen done so many times. At this track, it's inevitable that with 21 cars on track, and every car having done about 35 laps so far, that is not going to happen at least once, because that is so easy to do. The outside curb just spits you out direct to the left hand side, and then you oversteer into the right hand wall, and exactly that happened to Miro here this time round. That doesn't seem like, though. Got back out of his car once he got back into pit lane, and never really got back into it, so I think his day might be over there, Kenton.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty solid amount of damage. I mean, he went head first into that wall there, and coming out of that corner, you still have quite a bit of speed. It's not as slow as as coming out of turn 6 when you're coming out of the chicane there. So it might have done quite a significant amount of damage, and that could have led to a very long day for him there, as it looks like Karabelas has gotten himself past Bremer now.
But he is,
yeah, he goes into the pits. It also looks like Nagel has also gotten himself past Nagal. There we go. I was like looking at the name and I was like, I've said it. I can't remember. Nagal has gotten himself past him as well and up into P3 now.
Well, let's take a look at how that exactly materialized, because I think that happened just before we made that switch to do the replay. Now, the thing with Ewan Bremer being behind Rudolf Nagal is that now Ewan Bremer can finally save some fuel. However, the body language of Ewan Bremer, his car tells me that he's not by any means going to do that. Now, are these drivers going to react to Karabelas going into pit lane by going into pit lane themselves? Or what are we saying?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know we were expecting probably close to almost 2 pit stops here, but we've hit over it.
It's in the regulations. It says.
Oh, you do have to. Okay.
It's mandatory. So everyone needs to do pit stops, and you need to do it before the last 10 minutes of this race. Now, what we have seen done earlier on in the season is you take that first pit stop, and the second pit stop, you just stop in the box and drive away again, and that costs you about 2 seconds in the box, and then that's all you need to take. You take all the pain in the first pit stop.
Yeah, so that might be what Mike Busan was looking to do, is because he took a really, really short first pit stop, and then he did hit, I believe that's lap 28, so not about 10 laps ago, which, based on how these cars are running, he probably actually might be able to make it to the end here, so he might have been just trying to do that in the sort of that early end of things, the hop in, get a quick pit stop, get out. Yeah, you're now in clean air and you don't have to worry as much, and then you just kind of fight your way through and hope it kind of plays out in your favor as everyone else now has to take their second pit stop later. So we'll see kind of how it all goes, but I think if you're that front group, you want to be looking to start probably heading towards the pit fairly soon. Let's say in the next couple of laps, most likely. That way you can get in, and at this point, obviously, you're going to make it to the end on fuel. It'll just be a quick little run in, stop, and get out sort of thing. Although it looks like Karabelas going back into the pits here and making just a quick second.
This
Interesting.
might be what I was talking about earlier on. Let's see how long he stops in the pits for. There we go. I told it. Right on cue. Arturis Karabelas. Thank you, my friend. That is absolutely what I needed to prove the fact that that is what has been happening so far this season. And Arturis Karabelas proves the fact that I was right. And I love that.
That's, I mean, yeah, so if you're Frank and Bertie, you're going to have to start looking at kind of getting that set up and good to go and wanting to do that fairly soon. At this point, I mean, as I say that, Bertie makes his way into the pit lane.
Now, not together with his teammates, which I did not expect. Has Bertie been ahead of Frank for too long, or has Frank just forgot to pit? Which I don't think has happened. Knowing Jürgen Frank, he knows damn well when he needs to go in to pit lane. I think that Bertie just wanted to go and have a clean stop and just go out a bit earlier than Jürgen Frank did. So I expect Jürgen Frank, honestly, to come in at the end of this lap to try and kind of follow his teammate in.
Yeah, and if you're Nagel and Bremner, you're sitting there looking at it, and the moment I see Frank come in, that's when I would come in at minimum. Maybe a lap afterwards, but I'd still want to get going on that pretty quickly here. Because we're at 24 minutes, so not a ton of time left before you have to get that second pit stop in. But we'll see what Bertie ends up doing, if he's going to run a similar idea as Karabelas did of come back in the next lap, stop, get going.
Jürgen Frank, I expect him in at the end of this lap. Is he going to prove me right once again? Which I do love, because normally with my bold predictions, 97% of the time, I am wrong. However, it does create some really funny moments, I have to say. Ivan Bremer is 7 positions up at the moment. That is, well, that is flattered a bit by the fact that most of the drivers, or some of the drivers that he has passed now, are into pit lane. Now, he has been in P3 so far on merit too, so it's not like that P3 is something new to him. As Nigel and Bremer both come in, so Frank at the lead of this race, at the front of the pack, still able to run about 2 laps longer than his teammate who's been behind him for most of it. And, well, going further, Nigel and Bremer who've been running in a pack together for I don't know how long.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting setup because it looks like Birdie might actually be within a pit stop here of Frank. Like I don't think Frank's going to be able to come in, get it done, and then come back out in first, as it looks like Birdie's having a fantastic second lap here, or I guess not. Yeah, second after being his out lap here, although he's going to run right into, almost runs right into the back there. That got a little spicy of Emmett there.
That is Emmett, the driver that we saw earlier on. He's now 2 laps down on this bunch. That was rather close there, I think. A bit too close for comfort for Tim Bertie too.
Yeah, that's not something you want to see very often. But I mean, yeah, if you're Frank, you're gonna have to make some moves happen very soon here, because you're gonna have to. Yeah, I mean, unless he's planning to do it very late. But I don't know how he's still got fuel on that car. He's gonna need something soon.
Well, I think Kerry Kopeles, George Gonzaga, and Jason Duckworth are in for a second time. So most of the drivers now making their second pit stop. Menno de Graaf is also one who needs to still make a second pit stop. He is up in 8 because of it. He, of course, still, like I said, needs to make that second pit stop. This time round, actually did a personal best lap time, 1:42.03. Seems like that car is going well, so we have a car off the track too, I think. That is Daniele Cascado, and it is Daniele Cascado. Make sure you don't get into the way of anyone. He doesn't. Lifts off throttle. Will be on the apex of the corner. However, coming through there was, I think, one of the... Oh, well, I think that was actually Menno de Graaf who came through there. Yes, it was. So a little bit of a hard mouth moment there on the outside of turn number 4, the dog leg for Menno de Graaf. Rejoined safely, but then I think didn't really want to completely stop on track, so at some point had to get going again, as Bertie is in for the second time.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, Birdie has entered for the second time, and yeah, that was a little spicy for Graaf there, as he.
How big is Jürgen Franke's fuel tank, by the way? He's still going.
I have no idea. At this point, I am questioning everything I know, though. I feel like he's got to start coming in pretty quick here. He's got about a 48-second lead.
I wouldn't say bold predictions. He's going to go to the end. No, he's going to come in this lap, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm him, he's got enough of a lead now where he's able to get in, get out, and get it back underway.
Okay, I am so confused right now with what Jürgen Frank has been able to pull off, because wow, I'm flabbergasted by the fact that he hasn't. Okay, I just don't know what to say, to be honest.
Yeah, right. It's like, okay, what mod is he using on that? Because no one else has pushed this far, and maybe he's just hoping that he can get in, get out with a little even less fuel, or he's trying to create more of a gap to Nigel. But Nigel has also only done 1 pit stop, so he's gonna have to take a second one here.
Now, the fact that I'm so surprised about this comes because no one else has been able to do this season so far. And at one track where you're flat out for so long, it's even more impressive. This has been an incredible drive from Jürgen Frank, not only from a fuel perspective, but from a pace perspective too, because while doing that, he was only 500ths off of his best lap ever, and that is with slipstream. So Jürgen Frank absolutely wringing the neck of this car in terms of fuel, in terms of mileage, in terms of kilometers an hour, in terms of top speed, in terms of everything. Jürgen Frank, this has been a race where he's proven that he's worthy of being a champion and that he's worthy of being in that top 10. Not that he still needed to prove that, because we knew coming into this race that he would be one. Keep an eye on, and he's finally going to pull into pit lane. Ooh, I was almost thinking that Jürgen Frank would kind of be inhuman with the lap times and the amount of distance that he would be able to run in that car.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how he's managed to pull it off to get, because that's what we're on lap 43. He's managed 43 laps in this without having to worry about fuel. That's impressive. Now this is going to come down to what is his strategy going to be, as he's obviously going to have to fuel all the way, more or less all the way up. No, it's not quite full tank, because there's not as much time left as at the start. But it's now going to come down to what is he able to do in terms of getting back out, and is he going to come in right away and kind of hope that the rest of the cars are going to take their second pit, as Nagal comes in as well right now
for a second time.
For his second one, and Bremner obviously has to still do his. But Bremner looks like he's going for another lap here. So there's still a few people in that front group. Stephen Place has to come in for a second pit stop as well. I was just gonna say, Paul Crabb has to come through for a second pit stop. So there's still quite a few people that have another pit stop to go. So very curious as to what Frank's going to do now. With he's got about a 14-second lead on P2. So it's going to get real interesting in terms of what his decision making is going to be here.
Frank, it's been an incredible race so far for him. Is he going to come in again? I do think that he will do. However, having made that one pit stop, Ivan Bremmer is still in P2, so Ivan Bremmer looking good for a top 3 finish here, I would say. However, Rudolf Nagal and Arturus Gondelis both have pitted for a second time already. Needing to pit for a second time is Jürgen Frank, Ivan Bremmer, Stephen Place. Paul Crabb has already done his second pit stop. Arturus Gondelis has... Oh, actually, Paul Crabb still needs to do it. Arturus Gondelis has done it. Manuel de Graaf also still needs to come in for a second time. So does Jason Duckworth. All the rest has done their amount of pit stops that they needed to do. So it's just a straight run to the finish for them. And Ivan Bremmer is looking good so far after having made his first pit stop. 6 minutes left to make your, last and second and last pit stop. Ivan Bremmer is going to do it right on cue right about now. Stephen Place, is he going to follow him in? That's the question. Stephen Place is not going to follow him in. He's going to continue. So interesting strategies playing out here, and I think one of the biggest talking points after this race will be the amount of laps that Jürgen Frank was able to do on that one fuel tank.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that was incredible what he was able to actually get done there in terms of laps plus his pace. Like, I want to say, is in the top grouping in terms of his fastest lap, and even his last laps and things have been very quick. So it's not like he was holding back massively. Like, he seems to have been pushing really quite aggressively and still was able to put a ton of laps down with very little input from the fuel almost, which is quite amazing to watch.
Well, a little bit further back in the field now is Ivan Bremmer, who's dropped down to P7 behind Gondelis after that pit stop. Nagal actually got out best for these drivers. So, like I said, top 2, Stephen Place. Jürgen Frank still needs to make a second pit stop. So does Rudolf or Paul Crabb, excuse me. Then it is Manuel de Graaf and Jason Duckworth, who are in P8 and P9, not really fighting for that lead so far, or in the lead battle, really, to be honest. So they don't really matter as much to Jürgen Frank nor Stephen Place. Still need to make that second pit stop out of Stephen Place, obviously second behind Jürgen Frank. He will be looking at Manuel de Graaf and Jason Duckworth, thinking, okay, you know, with making that second pit stop, I'm going to draw back ahead of them. So I at least need to make sure that I don't have a longer pit stop than any one of those guys behind me.
Yeah, just doing some quick sort of math. Frank comes in, it's about a looks like almost 40 seconds for a fast stop, 37 depending. So he based on that, he's probably coming out around where P4 is right now, and obviously he will not be in P4 because Place also has to still do his second stop. So it's going to be really interesting as to who comes out where and when.
Looking with Man de Graaf then. What is he going to do? Is he going to spin it on the exit? Yes, he is. Man de Graaf actually keeps it going pretty nicely. Wow. That was pretty nicely saved. Almost did a power drift there in the SR8, which you didn't even know was possible. Man de Graaf keeping that car pointing in the right direction and not letting it completely spin. Rafael Blanco has also had a moment. He has gone into the Le Mans chicane a bit too hard already. Was in a bit too hard. Is he not? He's not going to hit that wall, is he? Oh, he's going to clatter into it even better. Or even worse, excuse me, for Rafael Blanco. Rafael Blanco has dropped with that all the way down to P14 and 2 laps behind the leaders. So for him, we should say it's I don't know, race over, I would say, in terms of the lead. But while we were looking at that pit stop, Jurgen Frank is coming to the pit lane. Heads of Stephen Place is just going to stop in his box. Watch what I say. He's going to go back out and after that once again. There we go. There is the pit stop and back out goes Jurgen Frank. And I think he might even stay ahead of Stephen Place, and he will do because Stephen Place, Kenton is into pit lane 2. So all is good now. And with that, look at the time that he's gained over his teammate Tim Bertie.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Played out really well for him. And he had it was about a 37-second pit stop time total. Yeah, fantastic. I mean, he gets in, gets out, and now he has got just over about 6.5 second lead on P2. And Bertie's got himself a 6-second lead, almost 7-second lead on P3. So it's worked out for the two over at SimRC. They're going to be enjoying that one a lot with how this has played out so far.
Especially the fact that they've been leading as teammates for so long. Let's be honest, SimRC Beethoven, because there are multiple SimRC teams in A3 to be exact. SimRC, so the big SimRC, then we have SimRC Beethoven, who've been so quick this evening, and SimRC Mozart, who only is represented this evening by Rudolf Miguel. So all of those three SimRC teams equally as impressive, but SimRC Beethoven just in a league of their own so far this race. In the season, over a complete season, they've been quite consistent with with all the other SimRC teams, but just this race, they've been so consistent, so dominant. And I think, especially over at SimRC Beethoven, there will be a big party tonight.
Yeah, they're having a fantastic race. I mean, you could not have asked for a better way for this to have gone for them. And I know, like, looking at it, Nagel is under threat from Crab here, but Crab has to still do his second pit stop, and he's got this lap basically, so he's gonna have to come in ASAP, otherwise run that risk. But yeah, he hasn't, so he has to get in real fast here.
Needs to make his pit stop. No, Paul Crab.
No, Crab.
Paul Crab is out
still
of
has
time.
to make his pit stop.
He's out of time. He's going to be too late. Paul Crab is going to pick up a penalty. So is Man de Graaf here. We're into the last 10 minutes. Man de Graaf, get your ass in. He's too late. He's too late. He's left it too late. They're going to get a penalty, Kenton. Oh no, I can't believe this. We're 6 rounds into the season. You should know that with 10 minutes to go, you need to have made your second pit stop. Or at least have gotten into the pit lane. I don't know exactly how the regulation is, but with 10 minutes to go, you need to have at least been into the pit lane. And both Man de Graaf and Paul Crab have not been able to do that. And that, with 6 races into the season, Kenton, you have to say it's just an unnecessary penalty that you're going to pick up.
Yeah, that is definitely not how you wanted to go about that one. That's going to be an unfortunate and unforced error by 100% problems there. Like that's just on yourself. Like there's no reason you shouldn't have taken that. And I still don't think he's come in. Crab has.
Paul Crab, let's take a look. Paul Crab is still out. Well,
Yeah, he hasn't even bothered to come in.
You might as well stay out now if you're Paul Crab, because you're going to get that penalty anyways. You might as well just stay out now. It isn't going to make it any better if you're going to come in, let's be frankly honest, is it?
No, at this point now, you're just
You're going to get that penalty for
take
not
the penalty
pitting.
and go.
You're going to get that penalty for not pitting. So it doesn't matter if you pit now or if you pit after the 10-minute mark. You're going to get that penalty no matter what.
Yeah, so I guess it's all going to come down to what the penalty is and how much of a penalty they get. Yeah, that's not a penalty I expected to see coming out of this one. So
Now, no
I
live
guess-
stewards, so we won't get it during the race. But after the race, in the full race results, something will probably happen to Paul Crab and Men of the Graaf. Now, Men of the Graaf, with making that pit stop, has done himself even more pain with that. Now, they might look differently at that, don't you think so? You, as a steward, you think he's made an effort still to make that pit stop? He's forgot it, but he's still at least made it. So we're gonna at least not penalise him as harsh as we're gonna penalise Paul Crab. Paul Crab, though, might penalise himself here. That's for sure. A slowdown, but that almost was Paul Crab into the wall.
yeah, that was a little dicey of the crowd there coming out of that corner. It's cost him a ton of time there. But Graf, like, he might get looked a little more favorably as he did come in. I want to say it was about 10, less than 15. I want to say it was less than 15 seconds when he did finally get into the pit, as he was on the lap coming in. So he might get a little bit more leeway on that guy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what Crab's plan was there. Like, I get you're trying to push, and maybe he just completely forgot about it. Or didn't realize how much time was left, but that's one of those kind of unforced errors you don't really expect to see at this point. Round 1, maybe round 2, or if you've missed a couple of races, round 3 sort of thing. But round 6 at this point, like, you needed to have made that pit stop, and it's going to do nothing but cost him the possibility, depending on how much of a penalty it is. I mean, right now Luson is still 40-ish points back, almost 42 seconds back. So he's got a lot of time behind him, or behind place, so he might not finish outside of the top 10. But depending on how badly they want to penalize him for it.
I don't know. Is he maybe in the understanding that he has pit? It's the fact that I don't know. It's a crazy one. However, Ivan Bremer is on the back of Arthur Scott Daly's coming down to the business ends of this race. That now means that Ivan Bremer will not give Kondelis an inch. Neither will Kiriakopoulos. Let's take a look at Kiriakopoulos, because we've taken a look at that battle between Kondelis and Bremer too much, I think, this race, because that's where the battle has been this whole evening long. Kiriakopoulos all over the back of Gonzaga. Kiriakopoulos in the blue number 20 machine, and Gonzaga in the 113 for insert name e-racing team in the black and yellow livery car. The checkerboard pattern.
I mean, this is going to be a pretty spicy duel to the end. I mean, we were inside our last 5 minutes, just about. I started that sentence way too early. We're now inside 5 minutes. So this is the time when you got to start pushing. I mean, you're doing, it's about 1:40 per lap, so you've only got about 4-ish, 3.5, 4 laps left. So you really need to start pushing and getting yourself into a good spot to be able to make whatever moves you need to do in those last few races, or last few laps that you've got racing here.
We're going to skip over all the pit stop drama, because so far into the season, I think it's a bit weird to still be talking about this. I didn't expect, really, neither did Kenton, for kind of these penalties to be dealt out. Now, Jason Duckworth in P12, he might pick up P11 because of it. Scribner behind that, he might pick up P12. But these boys, of course, don't know, because they're still in understanding that at least the drivers ahead of them, are capable enough to make that pit stop within 10 minutes. Now I think Men of the Graf, with the 10 seconds, just underestimated the time, or maybe just got it wrong with the time that he had to get into, well, the pit stop. But, like, Paul Crab has not done it at all, so that makes, I think, Paul Crab more guilty than Men of the Graf. At the end of the day, if you look at the rule book, they've both done the same, not pitted on time, or well, within the allowed time. So technically, they should get the same penalty. However, something for the stewards to decide. We talked about the fact earlier of being alongside is, and even that is something that the stewards have to deal with. And I said at that point, I do not want to be a steward at any point in my sim racing or whatever I do, because you're always the one doing something wrong to one party or the other. You're never right for both of the drivers. Very rarely you are.
Yeah, I've done stewarding in sim racing, in the F1 leagues and stuff like that, and yeah, they can get a little questionable very quickly, because some people are not happy about this, or some people are unhappy about that. Because it looks like Crab has himself a very unfortunate moment coming out of, looks like he coming out of the bus stop.
Yeah, I think it was on the exit of the Le Mans chicane. It's not the bus stop anymore. The bus stop it was about 2 years ago, but it is officially changed to the Le Mans chicane. Still the same chicane, but just named differently. No, that wasn't on the exit of the Le Mans chicane. That was on the entry to the banking. That was turn number 6. So easy to do. Let's have a look at what Crab exactly did. Hurting himself even more with all the pit stop drama coming at the end of this race. Full Crab too early on throttle. And there we go. Around he goes. And now has to allow Arturus Condelis and Johan Bermer too. So those two now fighting for P4 in this. Bremer pick up some really valuable points ahead of Full Crab. Arturus Condelis ahead of him now. Bremer, what can he do in these last couple of laps? I expect next time Jürgen Frank comes across the line for the white flag to be out and for Barney to be waving it on the top of the Grand Prix. Jürgen Frank, here he is, the leader in this race. He's been incredible so far. And nothing more really that Simracing Beethoven could have asked from him this evening. He's played the team game. He's gone longer than anyone else. And at some point even had us guessing on what he was going to do. If he was going to go to the end, that's how long he was going to go for. Maybe has a little bit of a bigger fuel tank in that car. Well, the stewards have to check and park firmly. They have to check the the capacity of that fuel tank, because I have a feeling there's something sketchy going on. Of course not. This is a sim race. You can't do that. But Jürgen Frank, exceptional race from him so far. Don't want to jinx him, so I'm going to stop talking about how good Jürgen Frank has been so far and hope that he can get cleanly through this last lap.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he's ran this race to perfection. He got out front, stayed with his teammate, utilized his pit stops, utilized his fuel amazingly, and has more or less just run away with it a little and got himself a nice, comfortable lead and just kind of allowed it to go to autopilot and keep moving forward. So fantastic race out of him for sure. Obviously we still have a little bit of time left here, but it's you couldn't have asked for more out of him as Bermer is going to. It's that inside move. You can't make it against Condelis.
Lithuania has been so strong on the inside there. Now the thing for me is, Kenton, that I get to enjoy Arturus Condelis defending the inside line for another 1.5 hours in the Americas, because Condelis also competes in that series together with Stephen Place. So Stephen Place knows what he's up for the attack of the Lithuanian driver. Johan Bremer though knows what he's up to too, because he needs to overtake him onto the banking, because else he's not going to be able to do anything. However, it looks like he's close enough so far. He's just been hanging or biting his time behind the rear of Arturus Condelis' car. And he might now go for it. However, I have a feeling that Jürgen Frank is going to exit the bus stop. Well, he has done everything to perfection. I think we can say now that into the last banking, Arturus Condelis has done everything to perfection. The fuel mileage, working with his teammate, the strategy, utilizing it perfectly. And Arturus Condelis is going to come across the line to take once again another victory, and a dominant one once again. 9.2 seconds ahead of his teammate Tim Bertie. Let's take a look at Iwan Bremer. They are on the last run now, down to the checkered flag. Is Iwan Bremer going to get him? We're going to go on board with Iwan Bremer. The slipstream is strong. Iwan Bremer is going to pull to the outside. He's not going to get him.
No, I don't think he's going to be able to.
He's hitting a brick wall. It is going to be Contagious. He's going to get P4. Pulled out of that slipstream, I think, way too early. Iwan Bremer just not able to get it. Even when Arturis Condelis does not have the slipstream, I have a feeling that Iwan Bremer this evening has been running so much ring on that car that in a straight line he's just been hitting a brick wall. But in the end, though, Kenton, you have to say it has worked out for him, picking up a P5.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a fantastic race. I believe that got him, he moved, I want to say, what was it, 6 or 7 places with that? Like, he had a fantastic day as well. But yeah, a great race from the SimRC Beethoven. They had a fantastic day. And I mean, you've got the SimRC team, I guess, having a fantastic day, finishing 1, 2, 3. So great job for all of them. And yeah, Frank, I want to know what fuel tank he was using on there, because that was absolutely insane how far he was able to get that to go.
For sure. Man of the Graaf also coming across the line. Karabelas and Joyce Gonzaga was close at the line too. What a drive from Jürgen Frank. Flabbergasted really is the word that I'm trying to find, because I just don't know. The fuel tank that he had in that car, unbelievable. But it's been a incredible race from everyone here this evening, from the whole SimRC Beethoven team. To make it a 1-2, a German 1-2, a SimRC Beethoven 1-2. Again, Frank back on the top step and doing all he needed to do. Claw back some valuable points in the championship over his rival Adam Isaacson. Adam Isaacson will be looking behind him now on how far Jürgen Frank is ahead. If I'm correct, the gap was less than 50 points. So actually, Jürgen Frank is ahead of Adam Isaacson in the championship now. So Adam Isaacson actually has to look in front on where Jürgen Frank is. But it's been incredible. Let's take a look at the results. They're out of the screen for you at the moment. There you go, Kenton. Pretty disturbing.
For sure. It was Jürgen Frank finishing first, Tim Bertie in second, Rudolf Nagal in third, Antaras Candeles in fourth. We'll go with Iwan Bremer in fifth. I know it's not the Dutch pronunciation, but we'll go with it.
Do you want to
Paul
try?
Okay, so how is it said? How's it said?
Bremer.
Iwan Bremer?
Yeah, that was not bad. That was not bad.
All right, cool. Yeah, there we go. Paul Crab in 6th, Stephen Place in 7th, Mike Bunsen in 8th, Jorge Gonzaga in 9th, Dennis, oh, that is a name for me. Kyriakopoulos, there we go, in 10th, Minno de Graaf in 11th, Jason Duckworth in 12th, Connor Scribner in 13th, Rafael Blanco in 14th, Daniele Castellaro in 15th, Andy Beeman in 16th, Joseph Emmett in 17th, Alex Regenbach, I believe in 18th, but I don't know if he finished. It looked like he was out at one point as well.
He is.
Rather unfortunately, yeah. Same with Thomas there, Miro.
And David, I think.
And David, yeah, I think all of them, unfortunately, were not able to finish today. But fantastic races all the way across the board anyways.
Well, I think David Wollaston, he rolled off the line, but then about 10 laps in, of course, had that unfortunate incident for the Tiger team. And back to pit lane, and we never saw him back. Spun off on the exit of the International Horseshoe. That was the last we heard of David Wollaston. Don't know exactly what happened there. Have to go on a hunt for David Wollaston next time to see what exactly happened. But I'm excited to talk to this man, and my first question will be, Jürgen Frank. First of all, congratulations with the victory, but what kind of fuel tank did you have into that, in that car this evening?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was not about the fuel tank. It was about the using of the clutch.
Well, there we go. The clutch is what did it for Jurgen Frank. But you, my man, have done something that no one else has been able to do this season, and that is run till about 18, 19 minutes to go in a race. So yeah, absolutely well done there on the fuel and working together with your teammate. Did that help you at any point too?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I was a bit desperate after some minutes, or let's say I wanted to already break the draft in the first lap, but I knew it's gonna be extremely difficult. So I pushed in the first lap, had a little half spin in the international horseshoe, and so the chance was gone, and the fuel game began. Yeah, I had to save fuel because the others behind, if they're just behind me, they use less fuel, of course. Yeah, and then middle of the race, after maybe 20 minutes, I had an idea. I told Tim Bertie that he should overtake, and I will push him. And that works extremely good. I mean, it was like we had all together draft.
Yeah.
So that was the key to the win today.
Well, your teammate helping you with that win too. Is there anything you want to say about that teamwork you did with Tim?
Yeah, he did an extremely good job because when we did that, no mistakes were allowed, because when you do one mistake, then the others are back again and it starts all over again. So with this strategy, we gained per lap maybe 2/10.
There we go. Jürgen Frank. The strategy so far, as has been the case this whole season so far, is to just do that one pit stop, I think, and then the second pit stop. Drive into your box and then just drive off again.
Yeah, I guess. And the end of the race, I had some thoughts about it. Maybe I just could have do the pit stop without refueling in the middle of the race, so then I would have been out of the draft too. But maybe you have some issues then with the traffic. But yeah, that was an idea I had way too late. But it worked with great teamwork. We all are happy with the P1, 2, and P3.
Of course, Simracing, of course, all over the podium. Well, Jürgen Frank, your winner of today, Jürgen, I'm going to let you go back to your Simracing Beethoven team, to all the Simracing drivers. I'm going to let you party because you thoroughly deserve it. And tell your team, tell your teammate Tim, of course, that he's done an incredible job too.
Yeah, thanks, we'll do that. And I also have to thank Rudolf Nagel, who built the setup for this week. It was, perfect, I guess. See you.
Thank you, Jürgen. Well, Kenton, a very happy Jürgen Frank there, I think, with a dominant display here this evening, especially with his fuel mileage. And it was the clutch in the end, not the fuel tank, the clutch that he was using.
Yeah, I mean, I've when it came to NASCAR, I've heard a lot about clutching in to save fuel. And wasn't something I really considered very heavily in road racing. So interesting to hear that was his tactic, but it definitely worked out for him. Just, hold that clutch down, save a little bit of fuel on going into corners. And I believe when we were sort of sitting on board with him a little bit when he was behind his teammate there, you could hear him lifting earlier. I didn't realize he was clutching in, but you could definitely hear him lifting earlier and not putting the throttle down and kind of coasting into those corners a little more, and saved himself enough fuel so he was able to push it quite far.
Yeah, well, I have read something in the general chat of the Discord from the Radical Sim Racing community. Paul Crap, good race tonight, he says. Unfortunately, I will be a DQ because I completely forgot to pit a second time. What an idiot. Now, I told you that Paul Crap might have been in the understanding that he already made that second pit stop, and that was definitely the case because it seems like he himself didn't really realize that he still had to make that second pit stop. However, Kenton, that has been it for an incredible Radical Europe Series Round 6 at Daytona International Speedway. I thank you, Kenton, for being alongside me in the commentary, but I thank everyone at home for watching. I thank everyone who made it possible too, because without them, we wouldn't have a race. Congratulations to our top 3 this evening. Jürgen Frank, Tim Bertie, and Rudolf Nagel in that order, from P1 to 3. Like I said, thank you all for watching. Next time, we will be at Suzuka, but before that, we have the Radical Americas coming up a little bit later on tonight. I'd love to see you back for that one. Until then, stay safe. Bye-bye.